This is the Pulsar ES1 Bruce Lee edition. Oh, and some super grip tape. My first question was, why Bruce Lee? I mean, I love him. This is a great little container for my mousepad, and it's a good piece of artwork that I've actually put up on my wall. So every morning when I wake up, he stares at me, into my soul. But I asked my Korean friends in my international college if Bruce Lee was big in Korea, and the only response I got back was, who's that? Perhaps this collab was just so Pulsar had an excuse to use this rather sexy and rather cool black and yellow color scheme for this and their Bruce Lee edition Pulsar X2. Or perhaps this was just an attempt to hit the Chinese market, which is probably the case. Unlike the mouse, which is black and yellow though, the mousepad is actually brown, like a slightly brownish black, with gold accents on the side writing out Bruce Lee Pulsar ES1 Special Edition. Me personally though, I would have liked if the mousepad was all black and there were more obvious and more gold accents, like what they've done here, but just a little bit more detail. It's 3mm thick, which in some fields is going to be way too small, but here it's basically the same as every other gaming mouse out there that you can find from a mainstream manufacturer. 3mm thick, for context, is about as thick as the Zowie GSR, the G640, and the normal QCK. It's going to be more than enough to have a consistent experience, and it's going to feel really quite good. Now, this is the soft hardness for this mousepad. Reality, it really isn't that squidgy. Partly because unlike my Artisan Raiden, which is 5-6mm thick and basically a chonker, but also because the material they use isn't all that soft at all. This is all down to personal preference, and I would say its softness is a little bit more than the Zowie GSR, for example, but it's just overall not that soft compared to my Artisan Raiden extra soft. Edges are stitched for maximum durability, and the whole pad is really nice and flat, just like our planet Earth. But what's really impressive for this mousepad for me is the base. This base is the stickiest, craziest, most locked in base I've ever used so far. I mean, it gets dirty and picks up dust really quickly, but after a wipe down with a clean cloth between uses, every time you place this down on your desk, it basically just doesn't move at all. It's more locked into my desk than my Artisan Raiden, than my Artisan high-end of past, and my Zowie GSR. This base is the best gaming mousepad base I've used yet. As for the surface of the mousepad, which you are actually going to be using your mouse on, I'll definitely say that this goes between the GSR and my Artisan Raiden in terms of resistance. It would have about the same static resistance as the Zowie, that is to say the friction that you feel when you're stopping and starting the mouse, but it has a much higher glide than the Zowie GSR, so it's definitely more slippery in terms of overall feel and movement than the GSR. The thing that's good about this is that because I'm coming from a Zowie GSR, stopping and starting feels very similar, which is very comfortable, but flicking faster takes less effort. It's a nice feel for me, and personally was something that I could get used to after a couple of hours of usage. Personally, if you're coming from a G640 or a QCK or a GSR and you want something a little bit faster, but not so fast that it's completely unnatural, this is, I would say, a natural step in the more slippery direction, and I think it's a great choice for those people. For me, it has been very easy to get used to overall, and it has actually become my new daily driver mousepad. Despite this though, I am still absolutely garbage at playing Valorant, which is a shame because I really would like to hit Mortal. And it's also pretty affordable too. Despite being a special edition, it costs the same as the normal Pulsar ES1 and is only like 35 USD if I remember correctly on Pulsar's website, which puts it in the same price range as other popular mainstream mousepads from SteelSeries, Zowie, you know, the lot. This means that it is a healthily cheaper option than something like an Artisan mousepad or a LGG mousepad, so it's going to be a very competitive option, especially with the build quality, the awesome base, and the excellent stitching and design that the ES1 has. On top of the ES1, I was also sent the Super Grip tape from Pulsar, and unlike the ES1, these aren't meant to be slippery. Contrary, in fact, these are Pulsar's new Super Grip tapes, and they come in pre-cut or uncircumcised form. You can chop it up to fit your mouse, your grip, and your preferences yourself, or you can get it pre-cut in these weird tiny little shapes and just set up with these preset cut bits, if that's what you prefer. They're thick, they're made in Japan, and they're nice to grip, just like your body pillow. Also, in terms of how they feel on the surface. They have this kind of glossy, slightly tacky, slightly sticky feeling, which is really nice for grip, just like your body pillow after a couple of very lonely nights. It's really nice to touch, feels super grippy, and the sponginess helps you hold on really tightly, which is something that I wish someone would do to me. Till that happens though, I'm gonna be using these super grips on my mouse, which is the super slippery Viper V2 Pro. I think it's an upgrade over the stock mouse grips that Razer gives you with your V2 Pro. And I also use some of these bits of grip tape on my keycaps to help me distinguish between A and D and the different keys on my keyboard without looking. And after a couple of weeks of usage, I'm glad to say that the super grips actually have held up pretty well. They do lose a bit of their grippiness once they get a bit dusty, but a quick wipe down with some wet towel or like wet tissue is actually all that you need to revitalize the sticky grippiness of the surface. You just need to remove the dust on the surface and the grip comes back. Mostly. So then, Pulsar's got some good stuff they sell, but then again, we kind of already knew that.